What's up, guys? Welcome to the show this week. I'm coming at you with the third installment of our Buy Stud Players. And this week we got Andy back from vacation. He's back in the States. Andy, welcome back to the show. Back stateside, as we call it here in the United States.
Thanks for having me back. I mean, still kind of in the United States, like U.S. territory. It was a weird thing. You get, palm trees, everybody speaking Spanish, and then you see a Burger King that's La Casa de la Whopper next to a Walmart and a TGI Fridays, and it throws you off for a second. And then you see guys selling little meat sticks by the side of the road. So it's a wild place. I'd highly recommend it if you make it down.
You'll love to see it. So today, Andy and I are going to be doing a how to acquire and buy stud quarterbacks in dynasty leagues. This is going to be super flex oriented. I don't really think anyone will have a problem getting a stud in a 1 QB league. Maybe for another day. But if you guys have a second, hit subscribe and like the video. But we're going to get it kicked off with a couple players that Andy's going to go over on how to acquire Josh Allen in a super flex league.
First of all, good luck, because most people use the number one quarterback. So he is super, super tough to acquire. I think he's a guy where a team needs to be really in the right situation. Like, for this trade, Ceedee Lamb, who wide receiver 1 or 2, maybe 3. So a top 3 wide receiver. Kirk Cousins, a little older, but still high producing quarterback for Josh Allen. The calc says it's a fair trade. And this is one where it's, if the guy has other quarterback options, but really needs wide receiver, then this is something that can maybe get done. But to trade for these super high-end quarterbacks, you're either going to have to give up an insane amount of still really good players or some really high-end talent. There's no way to get these guys on any kind of deal, really.
And then we got a second trade here for Josh Allen as well. Andy, why don't you walk us through this one?
So this one, it's maybe like Josh Allen's like a really good player for them, but the rest of their roster is not very good, and they're maybe looking to rebuild. So pick 103. That way they can either go Neighbors or Daniels or May if they like him. Devonta Smith, still a nice young wide receiver. Romeo Doubs, another wide receiver with upside. It's giving them options. So much of it depends on both your team and their team's makeup to get this trade done. So just a couple different ways you can try and attack it. But the biggest thing you can do is look at their roster, see what they need, and see if you can make it happen that way.
Yeah, so I'm going to go over one for Patty Mahomes, and then we can kind of get into some of Andy's points and chat about it a bit. This one, I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk, Tua, and Baker. My idea here is maybe they have one quarterback. They want to get 2, and they're shallow at wide receiver. But like Andy was saying, to get one of these stud quarterbacks off someone's team, there's really only a couple reasons or windows, I think, that could pop up for even being able to attack these guys. One of them would be this is their only asset. Like they have Josh Allen and nothing else. Or like maybe they had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and they're like, you know what? My window's over. It's time to start over. I'm going to break down Josh Allen because people want him. And no one's really offering me trades for Darren Waller and some of maybe like the older players you had for a couple years that you've been riding. Mm-hmm. And I think the other way that might be a sneaky way to maybe go after someone is maybe someone's deep at quarterback and they have like 1-1. So maybe in their mind, they're getting Caleb Williams, which makes someone sellable on their roster. But I still think they'd probably just sell 1-1 instead of Josh Allen. But, when it comes down to it, you never know. Just send the offer, and sometimes people hit you back, and they have different wants and needs than you do. So we're going to walk over a couple more trades here for Jordan Love, someone who's slightly more attainable, I think, than Josh Allen. Andy, what about this trade makes you think this is something that maybe we could go get Jordan Love for this price?
Well, I mean, it really depends how somebody values him. I mean, as a Packer fan, I love me some Love. I've got him a little bit higher, I think like QB 8, but he still falls into that range where it's definitely more attainable. The first 6 and also first 7 picks of this draft are being super hyped up right now. If somebody's hoping like an Odunze or a Bowers or maybe even a May can fall to them at 107, And then there's so much hype with Hollywood Brown right now. Obviously, the Rashee Rice situation is fueling Hollywood's hype and him being linked to Patrick Mahomes. So this might be something where you could, kind of trade two like solid pieces for your team and get someone who I believe could become an elite quarterback asset in the future.
Yeah, I think with quarterback, something that I definitely practice myself, but I think is pretty good even when you're sending an offer is if you're trying to buy a quarterback in a Superflex league, maybe besides one of the offers we went over where you're getting a stud like CeeDee Lamb in the deal, you probably need to include something that at least gives you the chance to replace that quarterback. So for this trade, like you were saying, I mean, I think this trade might be able to get done during the draft. Let's say Drake May's there at 1-7, like you brought up, and they're like, well, I do need a wideout, and I like Drake May, so this trade isn't as bad. Or like JJ McCarthy's sitting there.
Yeah.
But it's tough, man. And here's another one. This one is very interesting. I thought this was a very interesting trade. I don't know exactly where Andy's coming from, but when I saw this, I was like, this dude's trying to win.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one if, you've got these guys on your roster and the rest of your team is not looking great. And you're like, I need to rebuild. I don't have any quarterbacks. There's nothing wrong with then trying to sell those players who are still super valuable on a contending team, super valuable for redraft, and try and get a little bit younger and rebuild. I mean, this is one that could easily be a huge win for both teams where, Love is a top 10 quarterback for the next, 8 or 9 years. And these guys provide super high in fantasy value for this year and maybe the following year. So,
yeah. And I think Love's a good example of one that might be a little easier to attack because he's someone that gained value towards the end of last year. So he legitimately could have been someone's quarterback 3, but maybe they have Burrow or Herbert coming back now. So they're sitting there being like, well, I don't want to trade Burrow, but I'll trade Love. And then they're trying to fill out the rest of their offer. So the last trade here I'm going to go over is for Lamar Jackson. And this is just one way that, when it comes down to it, sometimes trading just a haul of picks is the best way to get someone onto your team. And this one's going to be 1-4, 1-8, and 3-8. I even made this an overpay on KTC because it said 1-4 and 1-8 was fair. And I was just like, dude, no one's doing that for Lamar. So I even threw in the 3rd round pick there on top of it. But this is like kind of like we were saying earlier, 1-4 I'm penciling in as a quarterback. This is Jaden Daniels, Drake May, McCarthy, their pick. And then they're getting another guy at 1-8. Maybe it's 2 quarterbacks and they don't have anyone on their team. And then they're taking a long shot there at 3-8, which like we know, what do we know about 3rd round picks, Andy? I know you wanted to discuss some points.
Yeah, I did a little bit of a dive on 3rd round picks because I love throwing in a 3rd, a 4th, maybe doing a pick swap in drafts to be able to like go get that guy if somebody's on the fence about trading. Because you look back at 3rd round picks since 2019, and there's really like 5 or 6 like stud players that have come out. So that's about like 8 or 9% of the 3rd round. 2019, you get Terry McLaurin. 2020, it's Cole Kmet, AJ Dillon, who are okay flex players, maybe solid tight end. Maybe you got a Jordan Love there. 2021, Kenny Gainwell, Nico Collins, Pat Freiermuth, maybe Amon-Ra. 2022, Dobbs, Pacheco, Shakir. 2023, Will Levis, Tank Dell, looks great. Chase Brown. And then everybody left off that list is somebody who's probably not on your dynasty roster or they're on a taxi squad and are about to get cut and won't really ever see the starting lineup. So you have like a 25% chance to get a startable player, about a 9% chance to get a great player, and a 75% chance that that pick is then worth absolutely nothing. So I would much rather like put that in a trade to like get somebody to take it and then get that known quantity who's already played in the NFL, who can really help my team win. So if somebody's like, yeah, I'll do it, but I need a little bit more, just throw in the 3rd, throw in the 4th. It's probably going to be nothing anyways, and that might get them over the edge.
Yeah, for every Nico Collins, there are 100 Cedric Tillmans and just all the players that slowly get replaced on rosters and they get passed over. Like even like Kenny Gainwell's, man, like they're like that's an okay hit for a third round pick, but also like,
Yeah.
what has he really done for you? And just like Andy said, I think throwing thirds in trades is just one of the smartest things that people can do, which is also why I like to preach the opposite of that is when people are picking up handcuffs and you're trying to sell them to people, I tend to err on the side of being willing to trade them for third and fourth, where I know some people like to hold out for seconds, but basically it just goes in a line with the philosophy Andy and I just talked about, whereas like the third round pick is sometimes the difference between these massive deals getting done. It's like, it's almost like a sign of respect. It's like, hey man, like this drink's on me. Like here's a third round pick. Like thanks for doing the deal. But Stud QBs is its own monster. I mean, I had a bunch of fun doing the running back and wide receiver video, but those ones are even slightly more realistic. Stud quarterbacks in a super flex league. Good luck, honestly.
Yeah. Firstborn son might be available on the trade block. You might be have to, throw in stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, really, the one way we didn't talk about acquiring a stud QB, it's almost backwards thinking, and that's just go get some draft picks and try to draft them before they blow up, because that's when you're going to get them for cheaper. And sometimes you hit on a Jordan Love, a Justin Herbert, but you got to take your chances because for every Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, there's Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, whatever you want to say. That's why QB is so tough. Yeah, Zach Wilson. Ooh. Exactly. But thank you guys for tuning in for a little how to attack stud quarterbacks in a dynasty league. If you have a sec, subscribe to the channel and like the video. We're definitely going to have Andy on, and I know we're both looking forward to the NFL draft coming up, and then we're hitting the summer, and we're going to get the wheels running. So thank you guys for tuning in. Andy, thanks for coming on, man, and we will catch you guys soon.
Thank you.